Okay, welcome back. Let's have a real conversation about one of the topics that has been long overdue for us to discuss. Let's have a real conversation about it because I know it causes a lot of stress, especially when you are writing in English for your academic work or even research. So I'm talking about paraphrasing. So you know that feeling when you found a perfect sentence in a book or article and it says exactly what you need and feel for your essay or paper. And your first instinct is to just copy it down, change a word or two, and move on. But deep down, a voice in you whispers that this can't be right. And I'm here to tell you that that little voice is correct. Paraphrasing is one of the most important skills in academic writing, but it's also one of the trickiest, especially when you are working in a second language. It really requires a good handle on vocabulary and grammar. You notice what I said, vocabulary and grammar. But here is the good news. It is a skill, and like any other skill, paraphrasing can be learned. It's not about being tricky or cunning, it's about becoming a better thinker and a writer. So let's forget the stress for a bit. Let's really understand what paraphrasing is, why it matters so much, and most importantly, how you can do it well. Paraphrasing is not just using a thesaurus to swap out words. So what is a thesaurus? It's basically just a dictionary of synonyms. A paraphrasing is not just about using your collection of synonyms to swap out related words. If you take a sentence and replace, let's say, quickly with rapidly and let's say walked with strode, you haven't really paraphrased. You've just given the original sentence a light coat of paint because the structure, the engine, and the core of that sentence still belongs to someone else. So how do I define paraphrasing? Paraphrasing is when you repeat something that someone else said or wrote, but you use your own words. You keep the main idea, but the expression of that idea becomes yours. So remember I said your own words, which means paraphrasing depends on your vocabulary and word set. And contrary to what most people believe, we paraphrase all the time in our daily lives without even thinking about it. So imagine you are at a family dinner or a program, and let's say your cousin or your brother asks you, what did the little girl say before I came in? I mean, you don't repeat exactly what the speaker says word for word, right? You can say something like, oh, she said the plate looked clean and I need to just relax for a few days or take some time off for myself. Exactly, that is paraphrasing. You are taking an idea that you've heard from the speaker and restating it in a way that makes sense for your conversation, right? And it's even like just saying a joke. Someone tells you a joke, which probably you've even forgotten for a while, but you want to crack a joke and you say it in your own words. That is paraphrasing. And in academia, it is the same principle, but we just have to be a bit more careful and formal about it, right? So why do we even bother with paraphrasing? Why is this skill so important? Why can't we just use quotes for everything? The first reason is that it proves that you actually understand. You go to school, it is education. So people want to know, your supervisors really want to know if you understand what you're trying to get across. So this is the most obvious reason. Paraphrasing proves that you actually understand. Then the reason number two is that it makes your writing flow better. Because imagine if you just copy quotes from different speakers or writers and paste them in an essay one after the other. It will really be choppy and disjointed, right? So paraphrasing here allows you to weave that information from your sources smoothly into your own sentences. That is it. And reason number three is that paraphrasing is the right thing to do. It helps you avoid plagiarism. Imagine someone takes your work word for word. You wouldn't feel right. So this is the ethical part of why plagiarism is important. So when you borrow an idea from someone, you have to show respect. And that is the third reason why paraphrasing is really, really important. So now, how exactly do we paraphrase? Paraphrasing is a simple but powerful process. So let's talk about the how. There are really two main ways to approach paraphrasing, right? So think of them as two different tools in your toolkit. And one of them is for when you understand the bigger picture, and the other one is for when you just need to get into the nitty-gritty of a sentence. So what is the first method? The first method is the tell your friend method. And this method is perfect for paraphrasing whole paragraphs or even longer sections. It's all about understanding. It's all about the comprehension. So when you read and understand in this method, you first read the paragraph over and over until you understand it 100%. And you don't skip this particular step. You read and understand because you can't explain something that you don't understand. And you have to ask yourself, what are the important ideas here? Then what else do you do under this method? You hide the source. And this is the most important part. You close the book, turn off the screen, or even look away. You need to get the original words out of your sight. Then the last step here is to tell your friend or even a relative or peer. So now imagine a friend sitting right in front of you. How would you explain these ideas to them? You will use your own natural way of speaking, right? You focus on the main points, but not every tiny detail. Say it out loud or write it down just like that in your natural way of speaking. So let's practice with a short paragraph about a topic many of us deal with daily. So let's say you've read this paragraph in an essay or a book. Getting enough sleep is crucial for teenagers, yet most fail to get the recommended 8 to 10 hours per night. This lack of rest can negatively impact their ability to concentrate in school and regulate their emotions. Over time, chronic sleep deprivation in young people has been linked to lower academic performance and an increased risk of developing anxiety or depression. So you've read this paragraph. What are the main ideas here? We need to extract the main ideas here. So the main ideas here is that teenagers need a lot of sleep, but they are not getting it, right? And this lack of sleep hurts their focus and mood. And in the long run, it can lead to worse grades and even mental health issues. So now you've gotten the main ideas. Now hide the text or look away from the screen and try to explain it to your friend. If I'm going to explain it to a friend or someone in front of me, here is what I would say. You know how teenagers are always tired? Well, it turns out that they really need like 8 to 10 hours of sleep. But almost none of them actually get that much. And it's a bigger deal than just being groggy. When they don't sleep enough, they can't focus in class and they get moodier. If it goes on for a long time, it can actually make their schoolwork suffer and even put them at higher risk of things like depression or anxiety. You see, the ideas are the same in the two paragraphs or sentences, but the words and the sentence structure are completely different. The tone I've used to speak to you right now is more of a conversation, it's conversational, but the core information here is still intact. And that is a successful paraphrase. So that's the method 1. So what about the second method, method 2? Method 2 is called the grammar toolkit. And this method is excellent for paraphrasing like single, tricky sentences. It just involves using different grammar tools to change the sentence while keeping the meaning. And the key is to just use more than one grammar tools at a time. Just like you use more than one tool to fix a broken car or bicycle. So I'm saying grammar tools. So let's look at 5 of the most useful grammar tools here. The first tool is synonyms. So to 1, use synonyms carefully. And this is obviously the most common one that we all do. You change words to other words with similar meanings. For example, in the sentence like, the ancient building was destroyed by the earthquake, you could change the word destroyed to demolished or maybe damaged. But in this particular step, you have to be very careful. You don't have to overdo it, because if you overdo it, your sentence will begin to sound strange. And also, don't change key terms. For example, if you are writing about photosynthesis, don't change that, because you can change it to something like plant food making process. It makes the sentence sound strange. So you keep the key terms. You don't change them with any other synonyms, right? Then what other tool can we use? So the second grammar tool we can use here is to change the verb's mood. You can change a verb from positive to negative or even vice versa. And this is a really great way to shake up a sentence. For example, let's say we have an original sentence like, the candidate was not honest about his past. That is a negative sentence, right? Not honest. If you are paraphrasing this, we can have something like, the candidate lied about his past. So lied replace not honest. We can also have another sentence like, the conference room remained empty after the meeting. You can paraphrase this to be something like, no one stayed in the conference room after the meeting. You see, it's the same meaning but completely different feel or texture. Then the third grammar tool is to change the voice. So you can change the sentence voice from active to passive or passive to active. This just changes the focus of the sentence. So an example could be, let's say we have an original sentence like, the research team published their findings in a major journal. You can paraphrase this to a passive sentence like, the findings were published in a major journal by the research team. You see, the second version puts the spotlight on the findings rather than the team. You can also try that. Then let's look at the fourth tool or the fourth grammar tool. You change the parts of speech. And this is a really more advanced tool, but it's more powerful. You can change a noun into a verb or an adjective into a noun and so forth. Let's look at an example. The company announced its expansion into Asian markets. Here, expansion is a noun. If we paraphrase this, we could have something like, the company announced that it plans to expand into Asian markets. And here, you realize that expand is a verb here. So we've changed the word form and the sentence structure, but the core idea is identical. Let's look at the fifth grammar tool. So here you combine or separate sentences. You can take two short sentences and combine them into a longer, more complex structure. Or you can even break one long sentence into two shorter ones. So let's look at an original example. Let's say regular exercise offers many benefits. It can improve both physical and mental well-being. How do we paraphrase this? We could have something like, regular exercise is beneficial because it can improve not only your physical health, but also your mental well-being. You see how that works? That's very cool. So no matter which method or tools you use, there is also this one rule you can never ever break. You must cite your source. So after paraphrasing, cite the source because you got that idea from somewhere or someone else. So in academic writing, even if every single word is your own, the idea probably belongs to someone else. You have to tell your reader where you got that idea. So think of it as giving a receipt. So depending on your institution or the style of the journal you are writing to, you might use the APA, MLA, or Harvard referencing or citation style. So paraphrasing without a citation is still plagiarism. And as you practice more and more in terms of paraphrasing, there are some common pitfalls you should watch out for. Don't fall into some of these traps. Like I said earlier, you should not fall into the thesaurus trap. Don't just swap words because it leads to clunky or unnatural writing. For example, the cat sat on the mat. Then you change words like the feline reclined upon the floor covering. You are technically using synonyms, but it sounds ridiculous. And let me say one thing here. This is not just to slander any of those tools. They are AI tools and these paraphrasing tools, digital tools that most people use. This is exactly what they do. They let you fall into the thesaurus trap. Quillbots, Grammarly, and what else? They mostly just swap words or replace the phrases, And if you are not careful, you fall into this thesaurus trap and you get hit with plagiarism. Then what other trap should you not fall into? That's the patchwork paraphrasing. This is when you take a phrase from one part of the source, change a few words, take phrase from another part and change a few words and stitch those two together. I mean, it might look new, but all those pieces are still borrowed, right? So make sure you use the tell your friend methods because it really helps you avoid this. It forces you to work from your memory and not from the text itself. So make sure you read and understand first. Then what other trap can you fall into? Another trap you can fall into is called the close call. Yeah, this is when your paraphrasing is okay, but it is just a little too close to the original in terms of the structure and rhythm. So if you put your version next to the original and they still feel very familiar, then you need to go back to the drawing board and use more tools from your grammar toolkit to make it truly your own. So learning to paraphrase well is just like playing any musical instruments by ear. So it takes practice, but it is one of the most valuable skills you would ever learn when it comes to academic writing. So keep practicing, be patient with yourself, and very, very soon it will feel like second nature to you. All the best.